Good morning. My name is Jennifer Heisey, the Vice President of Alumni and Donor Experience for the UC Foundation and Alumni Association, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to DAAPX. This program is one of many offered by your Alumni Association and a wonderful example of the silver lining created by these challenging times. In our network of 315,000 alumni in 127 countries, over 20,000 of them are DAAP alumni. That's a lot of DAAPers. Being able to bring DAAP in the University of Cincinnati to you, wherever you are, is what makes virtual programs like this so rewarding. We promise to continue to bringing you opportunities like this one, where we can showcase the talents of our alumni and hopefully allow you the opportunity to learn something new. I know I'm excited to tune in today, and I look forward to a time where we can gather together again. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce the Dean of the College of Design, Architecture, Art, and Planning, Tim Jachna.
Thanks, Jen, and welcome everybody. It's great to see you all here, even if it is in this remote mode that's become all too familiar for all of us, in which we've had to really embrace as a reality of our day-to-day work. This is just one facet of the ways in which all of us in the creative community in DAAP, and I'm sure for all of you as well, have been impacted by the current crisis. But there have been a lot of silver linings, I think, as Jen refers to. There's been so many manifestations of the resilience and the resourcefulness of the DAAP community in rising to these challenges. And beyond just problem solving, finding opportunities for innovation and growth. We've, in the recent months, had our first virtual DAAP Works, our first virtual DAAP camps, in which we've reached a wider and more geographically distributed audience than ever before. And case in point today, the introduction of this first digital DAAPX, which I think really goes to reaffirm the spirit of DAAP alumni as creative and agile professionals in their field. The work being done today and in this time is really laying the foundation for the future growth of DAAP and for each of our disciplines. We're taking this as a learning experience to go into the future with more preparedness and even more resilience. I don't want to take any more time away from the program, and I'm going to turn this virtual floor over to the capable hands of your MC for the day, Brian Traynor.
Thank you, Tim, very much. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Traynor, a DAAP alumnus. I'm a lover of hosting, podcasting, post-it notes, design thinking, and an award-winning race car driver. I was part of the inaugural DAAPX in 2019, and I'm thrilled to be back to introduce our speakers and help keep the day moving. With so much of the work that DAAP alumni do having a profound impact on the human experience, we thought, what better way than to have a showcase of work? All of these presentations were self-submitted last October as a part of the annual RFP process, so we're very excited to learn more about each. To lay the groundwork, presentations will happen back-to-back in both the morning and afternoon sessions. You notice a little chat box to the side of the screen. Use it. If you're a UC alum, share your grad year or where you're watching from, and react to presenters in real time with fellow attendees. While there will be no formal Q&A or question and answer at the end of the session, if you do have one for one of our speakers, pop it in there. We'll be monitoring the chat to make sure to connect you after the event. So if you want to make that connection, we'll help facilitate that for you. This is our first time trying this out virtually and live, so anything could happen. So here we go. First up on the docket, we have Geoff Baldwin. Geoff is a creative leader who builds products, services, and the teams who make them. He has guided multidisciplinary teams to creative cultures like Sub Rosa, IDEO, Lunar, and Co-Collective. Currently, he is founder and principal designer at People, Places, and Things. Here's Geoff and BCC, Building Creative Capacity. Take it away, Geoff.
Thanks, Brian. Good morning, everybody. I'm super excited to help kick off DAAPX today. I wanted to take a second to thank everyone involved with making this happen, and for everybody who's logged in so far. I was really looking forward to sharing some stories with you all in person in the same room that I used to fall asleep in during art history class. But we're here, we're social distancing, and we're talking design, so it's gonna be awesome. So as Brian said, my name is Jeff. I'm a 2006 grad of the ID program. I spent most of my career at places like IDEO, IDEO.org, Lunar and Coding Theory, working on everything from the future of the F-150 to digital financial tools for low-income Americans. Currently, I'm the founder of a design practice called People, Places, and Things. And the studio got its name because I believe the design is about making decisions. And while some of those decisions might be complex, the process to make them doesn't have to be. So my approach is very simple. Learn from people, be inspired by places, make great things. And by things, I mean like stuff, like products and services, like things people use. But beyond that, I'm really curious and passionate about making those things sustainable and repeatable moving forward. So just for a second, so today what I want to talk about is that ability, creative capacity. And so just for a second, I'd like for you to imagine that you own a restaurant. It's a super awesome spot, but there's only one problem. You don't know how to make everything on the menu. Like seriously, every time someone comes in, orders an item that you can't make, you have to run outside and get it from the food cart on the corner. This sounds insane, right? Like this restaurant would never exist. But it's actually kind of like similar to a lot of the creative relationships I've had in my career. There might be a client or a department at your company that has a product or a service that people want, a budget to make it, but they lack the ability to execute. So they come looking for a designer, which sounds great, man. It's perfect for us. We're just like rolling in the dough with all of our cool Helvetica tattoos. It's great. But in reality, I'm not sure if these are the best conditions for creative relationships. How often, when you're the lone genius, how often do you worry that your great idea might get messed up during a handover? Or even if you design something awesome, what are the chances that it's repeatable after the project ends and you and your team leave? So sometimes I wonder, what if creative relationships were less like that restaurant and more like a good cooking class? Like the client gets what they need, you know, and it's really good because it's made by a professional, by an expert, a designer. But they also at the same time get to build confidence in new skills because they have their hands in the project as well. To build on this idea, I'd like to share 3 basic principles that help build creative capacity. The first principle is called honest collaboration. And collaboration is something that everyone talks about, but I'm not sure always happens. And I believe there are 3 mindsets that make collaboration work really well. The first mindset is to start like an engineer. And what this is to me is when you begin a project and you begin a relationship with people creatively, it's important to focus on talking to people and aligning with people on the constraints that will guide your project. Without these constraints, all of your ideation might be rudderless. The second principle is to work like a bartender. And so I know this is a little bit weird to talk about so early in the morning, but I find that there's a misnomer about collaboration, that like you and I work on the same thing at the same time. And that rarely ever happens. The truth is, if you watch 2 bartenders work, they never make the same drink for the same person at the same time, but they know exactly what the other person's making, who they're making it for, what they're holding, and they move without bumping into each other. This is a presence that a lot of good creative teams have. You can get a sense of a project just by looking at the walls of the room or glancing over your shoulder. The third mindset to honest collaboration is this idea that you shouldn't be a magician. Like there's no part in a project where someone just goes, ta-da, and you reveal something amazing. The truth is that like designers, and myself included, like we're really bad at holding things close to the chest and not sharing things until they're perfect. And the reality is everyone has feedback to give, whether it's the first day of the project or the last day of the project. And in my experience, the minute that you've aligned on those constraints, that's the moment to put out your biggest, craziest, scariest idea. Put it out, put it on the table, leave it there, and don't take it back. It's a chance for people who are more risk adverse to get used to something. And it's a chance for people like us who may be more open to risk to see why our ideas are risky and make them better. A great example of honest collaboration was this project I led with a startup called Outernet. They wanted to broadcast information like ebooks or online classes or news. They wanted to broadcast it using radio satellites orbiting the Earth. They were looking for a partner to help them design their hardware and then to communicate how their technology worked, which you can see in this short video.
This is the end. It's the end of information droughts. It's the end of limited access. It's the end of controlling censorship. This is about making information a natural resource. This is the beginning. The beginning of a new chapter. The beginning of a second half. It's the beginning of a fresh season. Alternet is not the internet. It's the fastest and most economical way to offer access to information. With help from users around the world, Alternet uploads any type of digital content and broadcasts it over satellites for free. The dish receives the broadcast content and stores it on its hard drive. Anyone with a Wi-Fi radio can connect to the dish's hotspot and view the content through a browser. Now, the middle of nowhere is still at the center of everything. Offline users, people without access to broadband internet, can request specific types of content through SMS, messaging apps, and the Alternet Facebook page. Alternet will broadcast it all, anonymously requested, democratically chosen, and viewed without censorship. This is Alternet. Let's get started.
So what made this project amazing was that we didn't start with one thing first. We worked on the hardware and the story at the same time. And because we were collaborating so fluidly, there were moments where the engineering informed the narrative, and there were times when storytelling inspired the design. This was an 8-week project that won a FASTCO Innovation by Design Award, and it's a service that's been used all around the world. And all of this was only possible because a small, diverse team aligned on constraints quickly, worked shoulder to shoulder, and were not precious with their ideas. We were quite open. The second principle I want to share with you guys is this idea of designing things where they'll be used. And this seems like pretty straightforward, but it's not something that always happens. And truthfully, it's now made harder by things like global pandemics. But when you can design something in the place where it will be used, you imbue your solutions with an empathy that's hard to replicate anywhere else. A few years ago, I led a multidisciplinary team at IDEO.org working on a project to design digital financial tools for low-income Americans. This was a hugely broad brief, but we were led by 3 main insights. Number one, when we went out and talked to people and did ethnography, we found that people would rather talk about sex than money. It was a very taboo topic. We also saw that nearly 47% of Americans are about $400 away from a financial crisis. That's half of us almost. But at the same time, only 120,000 people receive financial coaching services. It's like ships passing in the night. And we noticed this inspiring service called Crisis Text Line, a service that allows people who are hurt or might be hurt by other people to find help in a discreet, confidential way. From these points of inspiration, we tried to find a way to use technology to scale the principles of financial coaching. We started with a set of digital guides that could help anyone navigate through any financial setback. The guides surface information and local resources and customize them to your specific situation. Think of it like WebMD for finances. We then took these guides to a city who at the time had the lowest credit score in the United States, Brownsville, Texas. It was in Brownsville that we saw how our guides could help people, but we also saw how they could be improved. And we realized that we needed to design tools for the coaches themselves. So we basically moved to Brownsville, set up shop across the street from our financial coaching partners, and designed with them new templates, intake forms, and guides. We basically rethought the way they did their entire job. And we worked on these things. By working on these things in Brownsville, it meant that we could try out our ideas in real time and get feedback in the moment. Every day at 4:30, we'd have a question and answer session with them. And it was also because of this context that we built a chatbot that helps coaches stay connected with their clients after their meetings have ended, check up on their progress, readjust goals, and share content that may be helpful for them on their financial journey. By designing in the communities where these tools were used, we were able to create solutions that not only worked, but our financial coaching partners wanted. The last principle I want to share with you is this idea that process is not proprietary. Process is something that all of us use, but when we're too rigid in our own process, our ideas can become stale, but the idea that it being proprietary can make it exclusionary. To build creative capacity, we have to include people in our design process who are normally left out. As designers, we don't have all the answers, and we need to design with people and not for them. Another project I led at .org was with a partner called Samasource. They're an impact sourcing company, meaning larger tech companies like Google outsource seemingly menial digital tasks like tagging thousands of images for machine learning to a place like Samasource. Samasource then finds young people in places like Kibera in Nairobi and trains them for the job. They teach them everything they need to know, like from what is the internet to how to use basic software like Excel and even more complex software, all in about 14 days. It's an incredible program, but they were curious how they could create more employment opportunities for their students beyond just working at Samasource. So we basically flipped everything. We opened up our process and became students ourselves. We took the course and we let our peers and instructors be a compass for where we should go, what we should try to solve for, and how we might prototype it. And after several weeks of inclusive design sprints, we left our prototypes with the instructors and students for them to evolve over time. In the end, this is what we created together. We developed a whole new curriculum that helped students talk about their professional ambition and discover pursuits they had never even imagined. This new curriculum also helped more directly connect what they were learning in the course with these potential professions. Beyond the curriculum, we created a program called Sama Partners that gives companies more flexibility in hiring students and co-creating curriculum that benefits both the school and the organization. And lastly, we reimagined their diploma, a thing that we watch students carry with themselves every day as a sign of personal and professional worth. We redesigned it to be a humble ring embedded with a magnet so that when two Sama people see each other and shake hands, they kind of click. So in finishing, I'm super passionate about building creative capacity because I like to design awesome stuff. But also when you build creative capacity, we create consensus, we inspire confidence, and we ensure continuity that will last long after the project's over and the designers have gone on to the next thing. So thank you all for hanging out with me today. Enjoy the rest of DAAPX.